Today we're learning about the components of thought. So, in this particular unit, cognitive psychology, it's all about how the brain processes information. It's how we create mental representations such as concepts and images and schemas and scripts, which we're going to learn about today. How we encode, store, and retrieve information. How our memory works. So, we're talking about the basics of thought today. Remember, thinking about how we think is called metacognition. It is so important for us to be always improving our metacognitive skills, for us to be able to assess the task in front of us, figure out the right strategies to use, plan an approach, apply strategies that we know work for us, and then reflect on whether or not those strategies are working so that we can apply them to the next task that we see. So, metacognition is simply thinking about how we think or being mindful of how our brain works. Really quickly, I want you to draw a picture of a dog. Also draw a picture of a piece of furniture. And just pause the video. Whatever you just drew is an example of your prototype, a mental prototype, which is the best example or the cognitive representation of something within a certain category. So I'm curious what your picture of a dog looks like. Does it have floppy ears or pointy ears? Does it have a long tail or a short tail? Whatever it has, whatever it looks like, that's your particular prototype that's based on your experiences with dogs. Furniture, I think, is interesting. Research shows that most people, when they're asked to think of or draw a piece of furniture, they actually think first of a chair. So did you draw a chair or did you select another piece of furniture? These are your prototypes. Concepts are mental representations of categories of items or ideas that are based on, again, your experience. Natural concepts are ones that are drawn from our experiences. So in other words, our idea of what a bird is or what the Statue of Liberty is, that's drawn from our experiences that we've had with those concepts. Artificial concepts are defined by rules. So the types of things we learn in school, like formulas, geometry, these things are all referred to as artificial concepts. We organize most of our declarative memories, remember that is one portion of our long-term memory, into what are called concept hierarchies. This is an example of a concept hierarchy. So animals, we know, have skin, they eat, they breathe, but now animals can be further broken down into birds and fish. Birds have certain characteristics, fish have other characteristics, and then from there we can also branch off, creating even more specific categories of birds and fish. So this is an example of a concept hierarchy, and it's how we tend to organize concepts in our minds. Thought and the brain, we learned a little bit about way back in the biology unit. Event-related potentials are what we see on brain imaging techniques, particularly on an EEG, when we see electrical activity in different parts of the brain that are a result of us performing a particular task. To go back to the functional MRI for a minute, when someone's in a functional MRI machine, think of like the love competition, right? We see activity, we see increased electrical activity in parts of the brain that are involved in that particular type of thinking or that particular type of task, in that case, in thinking about love. The prefrontal cortex, we know, is where all of our planning, organization, impulse control, emotional control, and regulation, where we balance short-term rewards with long-term goals. It's where we weigh a lot of decisions that we have to make. We know that as teenagers, your prefrontal cortex is underdeveloped. It's not fully developed until you're in your mid-20s. You have actually an overactive reward system, which is interesting, and an underactive amygdala, which makes you less sensitive to emotional consequences. That, coupled with an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of all of these tasks, really makes the teen brain very, very interesting in terms of your thinking.